Hello and welcome to On the Racing Line. I'm your host, Jim Perry. On the Racing Line is a series of shows that will highlight the drivers who are competing in the Spec Racer Ford Gen2 ProTour series by Elite Autosport. During the show, you'll meet the drivers and learn about how they got involved in motorsports racing in general, and more specifically in the Tour. We hope that you find these shows both entertaining and educational. And who knows, it may even result in you getting in behind the wheel of an SRF and coming together with us in one of our next events as part of the Pro Tour series. So join me now as we take you on the racing line. Good afternoon. I'm Jim Perry. We're here at Audubon Country Club for the 5th and 6th races of the Gen2 ProTour series of 2024. And we're talking with some of the drivers of the series. And I'm going to ask one who happens to have an X on his car, which I have suggested actually disappear because he is no novice driver. So, would you introduce yourself and tell us who you are and where you're from?
Sure. I am Roger Beck from Sugar Grove, Illinois. And I just started racing the Spec Racer Ford this year.
So this is essentially your third outing with the series?
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. So we started at Blackhawk and then Road America and now Audubon?
Yes.
Have you been at Audubon before?
I have done some track days here. Actually, that was really kind of my entree into any sort of motorsports, was doing DE or HPDE as they call it now. So I've done some track days here. I've done a lot of track days at Road America. But I last year decided that it was time to try some wheel to wheel.
Now wheel to wheel.
Yeah.
And so this is essentially your 6th time on wheel to wheel in the SRF. You just bought the car
last year. I just did a couple of track days with it last year, kind of some shakedown, get acquainted, and I just got to say, it was the most fun I've ever had in a car. I mean, just a blast. And I've had the pleasure of driving, I think, some pretty fun cars, including early Porsche 911s and 944 turbos and late model Mustangs. But this, by far, is more fun than any of that stuff.
It's really all the company, isn't it?
And it is. And I'll tell you, I mean, really getting to meet the guys in the series is just been great. It's fun, and it's great to be able to kind of share that with people who have that interest as well.
Right. Well, we generally have somewhere between 10 and 12 guys out on the track at one time in an SRF2. We'd like to have more, of course. It's a wonderful series. It's a great group of people supporting one another. It is competitive, though, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And that's the thing that, I mean, while I've been very comfortable being out on a racetrack and driving a car at speed, I have not been racing. And that's a very different thing, as you know, because it's one thing to do what you need to do to take the best line to turn in a fast lap, but it's another thing to try to be fast while other people are around you, in front of you, behind you, also trying to be fast,
right.
And so that's really been kind of exciting for me, is to pick up on that racecraft piece, which is why I really like being on track with guys like yourself and the rest of them that have so much more experience, so I can kind of soak that up and learn.
Well, that's nice of you to say. So this is the first wheel-to-wheel racing that you've actually done?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I'm absolutely amazed because you're very accomplished.
Thank you.
Those track days really did you well.
I guess it did. I didn't know that, because when you're just doing track days, I take my own lap times, but you have so many different types of cars, and you don't really have a gauge. So this was really the first time to be able to go out in a spec car where, for the most part, everybody has the same equipment, and get kind of a measure of, how quick am I? Like I said, it is kind of humbling when I talk to some of these drivers and realize, how many years they've been driving these cars. So, I mean, it's not lost on me that if I can come into this series and just be in the game, I mean, I don't need to be at the front, but just to be in the game and feel as though you can run with the pack is really exciting.
Well, Roger, you're certainly not in the back of the pack by any stretch of the imagination. I've been fortunate enough to be in front of you, and also maybe unfortunate enough to be behind you. You're an excellent driver, and I think one of the things about this series is that we all have a lot of respect for one another. We're all competitive, but I think that the thing about being respectful of each other's cars and each other's bodies is really quite important here.
Yeah, it really is. I think the line that I heard, when I first started to do track days, and some of the instructors would use the phrase that it's a dance. And that really is the best way to kind of describe it. You're dancing, and you're going to be very, very, very close, but you don't want to step on each other's toes. and that really is, learn how everybody else is moving and how you need to move with them.
Right. So, have you're from the Illinois area, not very far from here. You said about an hour, I think, earlier today.
Yep.
Have you actually done any track driving elsewhere in the United States?
Yep. Some years ago, I did a Porsche Club event over at Mid-Ohio, Gingerman, Putnam Park, but it's been mainly Midwest. Actually, that was one of the things I was looking forward to doing with this car now is being able to kind of branch out and visit tracks, VIR or, Road Atlanta or just, and just kind of make a trip of it.
Right.
And then go down and get to kind of experience some more of those tracks too.
So what was it about the SRF? How did you decide that you wanted an SRF as opposed to some other mark?
Well, I knew that, having driven street cars that were maybe modified somewhat for track use, I knew I wanted a purpose-built car. I wanted a purpose-built race car, and so when you start looking at it, I knew that this chassis has been around for a long time, and I also, from a cost standpoint, it really is a relatively affordable way to get into a competitive purpose-built racing series. So as I kind of did some research and talked to some friends that I have that have raced for years, it kind of quickly pointed to the SRF, and then I saw the Gen 2 series, and I'm like, I think that would be a great fit and a great way to start. And then if at some point I want to move to a Gen 3, fine, but if not, that's fine too, because I'm certainly having a lot of fun with this.
Yeah. I have to say it's a great group of people, and we all do seem to have a lot of fun. Every once in a while, things get in the way of that fun, but that's racing, right?
That is.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, what do you drive when you're not on a track? What's your daily driver?
Well, the daily driver is the tow car, which is a Ford Explorer. But I do have a 2017 Mustang GT convertible. So when the weather's like this, I try to get that out. And then, as I mentioned, I have a 72 911 as well, which unfortunately, I guess I don't drive it as much as I should. But old cars and don't have some of the amenities that we're accustomed to now, so it kind of sits in the garage. But when it does go out, it is really a blast, and that car actually reminds me a lot of the Spec Racer.
Really?
The power to weight ratio is about the same, and also being a rear engine car, and no power steering, no power brakes, it's raw, and so I think in some ways, driving that car on the track for many years kind of helped to prep me for the Spec Racer now too.
And so you do most of your own work on your car? You don't use Elite?
Well, again, I just got it, so I haven't really had the need to have anything major done. When I got the car, I did bring it to Elite and said, Bo, here, I just got this car, take a look at it, make sure everything's good. And he found a couple little things. General maintenance and whatnot, I try to wrench at it myself. And with my other cars, I take engines out, and so, I mean, I can do kind of the heavy liftings, so to speak.
Right, right. Well, Elite Autosport is our kind of primary sponsor of this series. We have other sponsors as well. VTO Wheels, who makes the SCCA approved wheel for the SRF, is one of our sponsors. Bulldog Security, another one of our Gen 2 drivers, is a sponsor, and Hoosier Tires as well. So we're really fortunate to have all that support. Makes it a really pleasant time because we get to actually do drawings, and whether we will finish at the start of the pack, the front of the pack, or the rear of the pack, we all have the same opportunity to be lucky to win some of these.
Which I have been.
Yes, you have, absolutely. So thank you very much for the time, Roger. I really appreciate your being with us today.
Great.
Thank you for joining me, and thanks to all who have worked so hard to make the SRF Gen2 ProTour series such a success. Our sponsors for the series have been Elite Autosport, Bulldog Security, VTO Wheels, Hoosier Tires, SCCA Enterprises, and Blackhawk Farms Raceway. Thanks also to all the crews, the fans, and all the competitors that have been part of the series for the last several years. And we'll see you again next time on the Racing Line.